When we start talking about a man who doesn't need a lot of people around him, who doesn't rely on friendships to feel strong, we're talking about a man who has learned how to stand on his own. A man with no friends is a man who's discovered a certain type of strength and peace within himself that many folks may never find. This isn't about being cold, distant, or a loner for the sake of being alone. No, this is about someone who has become secure in who he is. Someone who's learned to walk his path without leaning on others to validate or reassure him. In a world where everyone's shouting to be seen, to be heard, to be liked, a man who can stand without that is someone you don't see every day. Most people are afraid of silence, afraid of solitude, afraid of their own company because they're terrified of what they'll find. But a man who's comfortable on his own, he's someone who's spent time in that silence. He's a man who's looked in the mirror and faced what he sees, the good and the bad. He's asked himself the hard questions, the questions most of us are afraid to confront. And he's found his answers not by seeking approval from others, but by digging deep within himself. He's secure because he's not looking outward for things that can only be found inside. A man who stands alone and is at peace with it, he knows the strength in solitude. See, when you're alone, when it's just you and your thoughts, there's no mask, no pretending, no need to put on a show for anyone. You strip down to who you really are. And that's where the power is. A man who's secure in himself doesn't need people around to tell him who he is. He doesn't need constant validation, approval, or applause. He's not looking for someone else to give him permission to feel worthy. And because he's not caught up in trying to fit in or be liked, he's got the freedom to truly be himself, to grow in his own way, to develop an unshakable confidence in who he is. Now, friendships can be a beautiful part of life, don't get me wrong. There's value in companionship and having someone to laugh with, to share moments with. But a secure man knows that his worth isn't determined by how many friends he has or how popular he is. He's not keeping score. He's got his eyes on the bigger picture, on a purpose that isn't swayed by social dynamics or the pressure to be a certain way just to keep people around. He's committed to his growth, his vision, and his principles. And if people come along who align with that, great. But he's not out there seeking approval or trying to collect people just to avoid being alone. He knows that a man's peace can't be measured by the number of people in his corner. Solitude is his teacher, his guide. When a man has the courage to sit with himself, he learns things about who he is that he wouldn't find in a crowd. He learns about his fears, his strengths, his weaknesses. Then once he's looked those parts of himself in the face, nobody can shake him. He doesn't need anyone else to fill the gaps or mask the insecurities. He's worked through them on his own. He's faced them head on. And that's what gives him his strength. It's a strength that comes from within, not from the praise or presence of others. A secure man understands that the wrong friendships can actually weaken him. People with conflicting values, people who don't respect his boundaries, people who bring drama or unnecessary complications into his life, those are people who will drain him. And a wise man isn't about to let himself get caught up in that. He's selective because he respects his peace too much to throw it away on relationships that aren't good for him. And sometimes that means he ends up walking a quieter path, a more solitary path. But that solitude is rich, it's purposeful, it's peaceful. A man like that, he's not without empathy or connection. He knows how to connect deeply when he chooses to. But he's not so eager to share himself with just anyone. He values his time, his energy, his mind, and he's careful about who he shares those parts of himself with. When he does let someone in, it's because they've shown They respect who he is and what he stands for. He's not interested in superficial connections. He's looking for depth, for respect, for authenticity. And if that's not on the table, he's perfectly fine keeping to himself. See, society often tries to tell us that being alone is something to be fixed, something to avoid. But a secure man knows better. He knows that sometimes standing alone is exactly what a man needs to grow, to understand his worth, to build himself up from the inside out. And when a man truly knows his worth, he doesn't fear solitude. He doesn't need a crowd. He doesn't need to fit into some mold. He's confident in his own path, in his own skin, and that makes him unshakable. This man, he stands solid because he understands that true self-respect is about what he knows to be true when he's alone, not about the noise that comes from outside. He's looked himself in the eye in moments of silence, moments of challenge, moments of truth. He's come face to face with who he is, what he's done, and where he's going. And because he's been through that kind of self-reflection, that kind of personal accountability, he's earned a respect for himself that doesn't rely on the opinions of others. It's an unshakable confidence, one that's built from the inside out, not from the fleeting approval that comes from those around him. This is a man who's walked through fire, who's been tested in ways that few will ever understand. He's had to confront his weaknesses, his regrets, his insecurities, and he's come out on the other side stronger, wiser, and more self-assured. There's no need for applause. Because he knows the work he's done, he doesn't need it validated by anyone else. He's not looking for praise. He's not out here trying to collect admirers or followers. He's moved past that phase in life where external validation feels like a necessity. He's come to a place of peace that only he can define. And that's what makes him secure. And in today's world, that's a radical thing. Society would have you believe that your worth is tied to how many people know your name, how many people like your photos, how many people are tuned in to what you're doing. But this man has separated himself from that. He's not defined by his social circle, by how many people think he's successful, or by how many people are interested in his life. His value, his sense of self-worth, is rooted in what he knows he's accomplished, in the strength of his character, and in the path he's chosen to walk. He understands that popularity doesn't equate to fulfillment. He's secure enough to know that real value isn't something that fluctuates based on the opinions of others. It's something you carry with you quietly, with a steady heart. He's content in the quiet spaces of his life, those moments when it's just him, the silence, and his thoughts. He's not uncomfortable with his own company because he's made peace with who he is. He's worked to resolve his inner conflicts, he's faced his past, he's acknowledged his mistakes, and he's learned from them. So when he's alone, he's not haunted by regrets or unfinished business. He's at ease because he knows he's done the best he could with the hand he's been dealt. That kind of peace, that kind of contentment doesn't come from a life filled with people. It comes from a life filled with purpose, with integrity, with a commitment to self-growth that transcends the need for outside approval. People on the outside might not understand this. They see a man without a big social circle, without a crowd around him, and they assume he must be lonely, that he must be missing something. But that kind of thinking says more about them than it does about him. It reveals a mindset that places value on appearance over substance, on perception over truth. A secure man doesn't live his life for others to understand. He's not performing for an audience. His life, his choices, his journey, those are his alone. And he's content to walk his path without the need for others to validate it. He's not avoiding people. He's just not dependent on them to define his worth. He knows that true strength is quiet. It doesn't need to be on display. It doesn't need a platform. It doesn't need to be noticed. Real strength is like a mountain firm, unwavering, rooted deeply in the earth. It's not moved by the wind, it's not shaken by storms. It's steady because it's grounded in something real, something internal. This man has found his strength within, and because of that, he doesn't need to make a show of it. He's not broadcasting his achievements. He's not out here trying to impress. He's simply living in alignment with his values, and that's all the validation he needs. People may see him alone and assume he's lacking. But solitude isn't emptiness for a man like this, it's richness. Solitude allows him the space to think clearly, to hear his own voice, to connect with his own spirit. In a world full of noise, solitude becomes a sanctuary, a place where he can center himself and stay true to who he is. This man has learned that his life doesn't need to be validated by likes, by followers, by applause. He's grown wise enough to know that those things are temporary, that they come and go, and that they have no bearing on the kind of man he is or the impact he has. He's secure in the knowledge that his value is determined not by how many people notice him, but by the quality of the life he's living. He's focused on his purpose, on his goals, on the legacy he's building. And he knows that real success, real fulfillment isn't measured in numbers or recognition. It's measured in the depth of his character, in the strength of his convictions, and in the way he carries himself through life. It takes courage to live this way, to stand apart, to be comfortable in your own skin without needing others to validate it. This man has that courage. He's not afraid of solitude because he knows that it's in those moments of quiet that he finds his true power. He doesn't need to fill his life with people just to feel whole. He's already whole. He's not out here searching for approval because he's already approved of himself, and that's a rare kind of security, a rare kind of strength, and it's something that not everyone will understand. But this man, he's okay with that. He doesn't need to be understood by everyone. He's not living his life to meet others' expectations. He's living it to honor his own values, his own truth. He's secure in the knowledge that he's walking his path with integrity. And that's all the validation he needs. The strength of a man isn't determined by the size of his crowd, but by the size of his character. And this man, he's built a character that can stand alone, a character that doesn't bend to the opinions of others, a character that remains steady even in the face of solitude. In a world that constantly tries to define us, that constantly pushes us to seek approval, to fit in, to be seen, a man who's content to walk his path alone is a man who's truly free. He's free from the need for validation, free from the pressures of conformity, free from the fear of solitude. He's learned that his worth is something he defines, something he carries within himself, something that no one else can give or take away. And because of that, he's secure, he's steady, he's unbreakable. This man doesn't need friends to feel valued. He doesn't need a crowd to feel secure. He's found his value within, and that's a source of strength that can't be shaken. That's the power of self-respect, the power of true security. He's a man who walks his path with quiet strength, with unwavering purpose, with a peace that can only come from within. And that's a rare thing in this world, a beautiful thing. This is a man who's truly secure, not because of who surrounds him, but because of who he is when he stands alone. This kind of man, he's not against having friends or forming connections, not by any means. But he understands that friendship isn't a necessity to complete him, it's an enhancement, a choice he's willing to make if it's right, if it's real. He's not out here looking for people to validate him or to fill any kind of emptiness inside, because there isn't any. He's learned to fill those spaces himself, with purpose, with principles. with a vision for his life that no one else needs to define. He's not desperate for anyone's presence because he's already made peace with his own. He knows there's strength in solitude, that sometimes the best way to get to know yourself is to be by yourself. When you take away the need for constant company, something incredible happens. You give yourself the room to breathe, to think, to reflect. You start understanding your own mind, your own motivations, your own soul. And a man like this, he's done that. He's spent time in those quiet moments. And he's discovered things about himself that he wouldn't have found if he was constantly surrounded by people. It's in those moments of silence that he's heard his own voice the clearest, that he's learned what truly drives him, what he truly values. He's seen his own reflection without any distortion, without any external influence. And he's come to know himself in ways that few people ever will. Now, he's not closed off, he's just not reliant. He's open to connection, but he's selective about who he allows close. He knows that every relationship, every person he brings into his life, brings a certain energy, a certain influence, and he's careful about that. He's not going to let just anyone in because he respects himself enough to protect his peace. He's not looking for shallow friendships or relationships built on convenience. He's not interested in being around people who only show up when everything is smooth but disappear when things get real. If he's going to invest in someone, it's going to be meaningful. It's going to be genuine. He values depth over quantity. And if that means his circle is small, that's a choice he's more than comfortable with. Because here's the truth, this man understands that his worth isn't determined by the number of people around him. It's not about having a crowd or big group to validate his existence. His value is found in how he lives, in the principles he stands by, in the integrity he carries within himself. He's measured by the way he respects himself, by the standards he sets, by the way he walks through life. He knows that the people who truly matter, the people who are worth his time, will recognize his worth without him having to prove it, without him having to be anyone other than who he is. And he's secure because he knows deep down that at the end of the day he's all he truly has. Friends, companions, they may come and go. People drift in and out of our lives for various reasons. But he knows that the only constant, the only person he's guaranteed to be with through every single moment is himself. So he's taken the time to get to know that person, to build a solid foundation within, to become someone he can rely on. He's not looking to others to fill that role because he's already become that for himself. Some folks, they'll look at a man like this and think he's missing out. They'll see his solitude and mistake it for loneliness, his quiet for emptiness. They'll think he's somehow incomplete because he's not constantly surrounded by people. But what they don't realize is that he's not missing anything. He's found fulfillment within himself, a sense of wholeness that doesn't require anyone else's input. He's found a level of contentment that can't be bought, can't be given, can't be taken away by anyone but him. And that's a level of peace that most people never find, because they're too busy looking for it outside themselves. This man's contentment isn't a show. He doesn't need to flaunt it or prove it to anyone, because it's not for anyone else. It's his, something he's cultivated through his own journey, his own struggles, his own triumphs. He's been through things that have taught him the value of being able to stand on his own 2 feet, of not needing anyone else's approval to feel worthy. And through that, he's built a sense of confidence, a quiet, unshakable strength that doesn't depend on the opinions or presence of others. And because of that, he doesn't walk around with an air of arrogance. No, it's not that. It's simply that he's sure of himself. He knows who he is, what he stands for, what he wants in life, and he's not about to compromise that for anyone. He doesn't need to bend or mold himself to fit into someone else's expectations. He doesn't need to chase after people to prove himself, to gain acceptance. He knows that anyone who truly values him will accept him as he is. And anyone who doesn't, well, they're simply not meant to be part of his life, and he's okay with that. This kind of man understands that true security, real strength, that's not loud. It doesn't need to be. It's not about being the center of attention or needing everyone to know who you are. It's about standing firm in who you are, even when no one else is watching. It's about walking the path that aligns with your values, even if it's a path you walk alone. He knows that real strength is quiet, steady, consistent. It's not something that fades when the crowd disperses. It's something that remains, something that's built into his very character. So while others may see his solitude and misinterpret it, he knows that his peace is worth far more than the kind of friendships that demand he be anything other than who he is. He's willing to walk his path alone if that's what it takes to stay true to himself. He's not about to compromise his peace, his values, his sense of self just to have people around him. He'd rather walk in solitude than be surrounded by people who don't truly respect him, who don't understand him, who aren't genuine. And that's where his security comes from. It's not about having a big circle or a long list of friends. It's about having a solid sense of self, a clear understanding of his own worth. It's about knowing that he's enough, that he doesn't need anyone else's presence to feel complete. He's comfortable in his own skin. He's at peace with his own thoughts. He's content with his own company. That's a rare strength, a kind of confidence that doesn't waver when others don't understand. People will always have opinions. They'll always have something to say, especially about things they don't understand. But this man, he doesn't live his life for the opinions of others. He's not here to make everyone else comfortable. He's here to live his truth, to honor his own path, to build a life that's meaningful to him. He knows that some people will never understand his choices, but that's okay. His life, his happiness, his peace, they're not dependent on other people's understanding. So, if you see him walking alone, don't mistake it for a lie. Don't assume he's lonely or searching for something he doesn't have. He's already found it within himself. He's already built a foundation of self-respect, of integrity, of purpose. And that foundation, it's enough to carry him, enough to keep him strong, enough to keep him secure. He's not waiting for anyone to complete him because he's already whole. In the end, he's the kind of man who knows that true fulfillment doesn't come from how many people know his name or how many friends he has by his side. It comes from living a life that's authentic, a life that's true to his values, a life that reflects who he truly is. And if that means he walks alone, then so be it. He's more than prepared to do just that. He knows that his strength, his worth, his peace, they're all things he's built for himself, and they're things no one else can take away. That's real security. That's true contentment. And that's the kind of strength that lasts. There's a certain beauty in being able to walk your own path, knowing that you don't need anyone else to define you or validate you. This man, he's learned that. He's found a freedom that's rare, a freedom that only comes when you understand your own worth. See, most people go through life tied down by the need to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be accepted. They're constantly looking outward, waiting for someone else to tell them they're good enough, waiting for the world to give them a sense of purpose. But this man, he's not weighed down by that need. He doesn't look to others to give him value because he already knows who he is, what he stands for, what he's worth. That kind of freedom is powerful. It's the kind of freedom that lets you walk away from situations that don't serve you, that lets you make choices that align with your values, not someone else's expectations. He's not bound by what others think he should do or who they think he should be. He's free to be exactly who he was meant to be. And that's what real security looks like. It's not about having a crowd cheering you on. It's about knowing that even if you're the only one clapping for yourself, you're enough. It's about knowing that your life has value even if no one else sees it. This man, he's rare because he's comfortable with solitude. He's not scared to spend time with himself, to sit in the quiet, to face his own thoughts. Most people avoid being alone because they don't like what they find there. They don't want to face their insecurities, their fears, their doubts. But this man, he's walked through all of that. He's faced his own demons, looked his fears in the eye, and come out stronger on the other side. He's discovered that the strength he needs is already within him, and he's not afraid to lean on that. In a world that's full of noise, full of distractions, full of people telling you who you should be, he's found peace in silence. He's found clarity in solitude. He's learned that sometimes the only way to really understand yourself, to truly grow, is to step away from the crowd, to take a step back from all the voices and listen to your own. He's found that peace doesn't come from having people around, it comes from knowing you can be by yourself and still be whole. That's a strength not many people have, because it requires real courage to face yourself, to accept yourself, to love yourself as you are. People might look at him and not understand. They might question why he doesn't have a big circle, why he seems so comfortable walking his own path, why he doesn't need the same things they do to feel validated. They might even judge him, label him, misunderstand him, but he's okay with that. He doesn't live his life to please others. He doesn't measure his worth by someone else's opinion. He knows that not everyone will understand his choices, and he's made peace with that. He's not looking for approval because he's already given it to himself. He's not waiting for the world to tell him he's enough, because he's already decided he is. That's what makes him secure. It's not that he's cold or distant or unapproachable. It's that he's grounded. He's grounded in who he is, in what he values, in the journey he's on. He doesn't need the noise, the constant validation, the distractions. He's chosen a path that may be harder, that may be lonelier, but that's true to him. He's chosen a life that's built on self-respect, on self-awareness, on genuine strength. He's not trying to impress anyone. He's not trying to be anyone he's not. He's simply being himself, and he's found a way to be at peace with that. When you look at a man like this, you're looking at someone who has found fulfillment within himself. He's not chasing after something external, something outside of himself. He's not looking for someone else to complete him because he's already whole. He's learned to stand on his own, to rely on himself, to be his own source of strength. And that, right there, is rare. It's a quiet kind of strength, a strength that doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to be validated by others. It simply is. This man knows that true fulfillment doesn't come from having a crowd around you, or a list of accomplishments, or a bank of followers. True fulfillment comes from living a life that's authentic to who you are. It comes from knowing that you're walking a path that's meaningful, that you're living a life that reflects your values, that you're being true to yourself. And he's committed to that. He's committed to living a life that he can be proud of, a life that, even in the quiet moments, feels right to him. He understands that not everyone will appreciate his journey. Not everyone will understand the choices he's made, the path he's walking. But that's okay. He's not here to be understood by everyone. He's here to live his truth. He's here to honor his own path, to build a life that resonates with him, a life that when he looks back he can say was truly his. And he knows that, at the end of the day, he's the one who has to live with his choices. He's the one who has to look in the mirror and be at peace with the person staring back at him. That's why he's secure, why he's grounding. Because he's built his life on a foundation of self-respect, of integrity, of purpose. He doesn't need anyone else to validate that. He doesn't need the world to tell him he's on the right track because he knows he is. He's listened to his own voice, followed his own heart, and he's confident in the path he's chosen. He's not out here looking for validation because he's already found it within himself. And when you find a man like that, you're looking at someone who's truly free. Free from the need for approval, free from the fear of judgment, free from the limitations others try to place on him. He's free to be exactly who he is, to walk his path, to live his life. That's a freedom most people never find because they're too busy trying to fit into a mold, too worried about what others think. But this man, he's broken free from all of that. He's living a life that's true to him. A life that's authentic, a life that, even in the moments of solitude, feels complete. It takes courage to walk this path, to choose a life that doesn't depend on the opinions of others. It takes strength to look within, to find your own worth, to know that you're enough. And this man, he's done that work. He's found the courage, embraced that strength, and it's led him to a place of true peace. He knows who he is, and he's okay with being that person, even if no one else understands. He's okay with walking alone, with choosing solitude over shallow connections, with valuing himself over the validation of others. So if you see him walking alone, don't assume he's lacking something. Don't think he's missing out. He's found something most people spend their whole lives searching for. He's found himself. He's found a sense of worth that isn't tied to anyone else, a sense of peace that doesn't depend on someone else's presence. He's whole, he's complete, and he's living a life that's true to who he is. That's real freedom. That's real security. And that's the kind of strength that can't be shaken. In the end, he's the kind of man who will leave a legacy not because of how many people knew him, but because of the way he lived his life. He'll be remembered for his integrity, for his strength, for his commitment to himself. He'll be remembered as a man who walked his own path, who wasn't afraid to be alone, who valued himself enough to be true to who he was. And that's the kind of legacy that lasts. A man with no friends isn't a man who's lacking. He's a man who's found something deeper, something more enduring. He's found himself. And that, my friends, is a powerful thing. Because when you're secure in who you are, when you've made peace with your own company, there's nothing you can't face. There's nothing that can shake you. You're grounded, you're steady, you're whole. And that right there is what it means to be truly secure. Imagine this: one day you just disappear. You don't leave hints, breadcrumbs, or a single message behind. You're not just dialing down your presence, you've gone vanished like you never existed in their world. And as you walk away, a thought crosses your mind: have they really appreciated you, truly valued you, or have they simply taken you for granted, assuming you'd always be there like oxygen? Think about it. You've always been that reliable figure, the one who picks up the pieces. The constant presence they assumed was a given. And it's because of that constancy that they've grown comfortable, complacent. They believe they can treat you any way they like because they expect you'll always be there, waiting, forgiving, and available at their convenience. But here's the brutal truth: when you vanish, when you decide you're done playing that role, it shakes their world in ways they never anticipated. Because suddenly they're forced to face a reality they never prepared for, a reality without you. So what happens when you decide to remove yourself from the picture completely? No texts, no calls, no visits, no likes on their posts. Just silence. A silence that speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. And that's when the real impact begins to hit them. Slowly at first, like a creeping realization, but then it builds and soon it's all-consuming. They never thought you'd be the one to walk away, and now they're left wondering why. They feel that absence, they miss your presence more with each passing day. The very thing they once took for granted is now the thing they crave. Imagine the confusion in their minds as they replay every interaction, wondering where they went wrong. For so long they felt secure, convinced that they could always reel you back in, keep you around like a backup plan, a safety net. But now that safety net is gone, and all that's left is the hollow space you once filled. It's an emptiness they never expected and one they can't easily ignore. Let's be real, your constant availability gave them a false sense of control. They thought they knew exactly how to handle you, how to string you along without ever truly committing. They saw you as predictable, as someone they could count on to always be there, no matter how they treated you. But the game has changed, and now the script is flipped. When you pull away, when you step out of their lives, it forces them to confront something they weren't prepared for, a world without you. Now, they're left with this one haunting question, echoing in the back of their minds: what if I've lost them for good? It's a feeling that cuts deep, one that lingers long after they realize you're really gone. And as that feeling sinks in, their confidence begins to crumble, their ego takes a hit, and they're left to second-guess every word they spoke, every action they took, and every time they pushed you aside, thinking you'd always be there. You see, people don't often appreciate what they have until it's gone. It's human nature. We overlook the things we think will always be there, only to realize their true value once they're no longer accessible. When you disappear, it isn't just your presence that they miss. It's the understanding that they took you for granted. That absence you leave behind. It becomes a wake-up call that reverberates in every corner of their mind, reminding them of what they lost, of what they never thought they needed until it was gone. But make no mistake, this isn't about revenge or manipulation. It's about reclaiming your power, taking back your worth, and showing them that you are not someone they can afford to lose. When you step away, it's more than just a disappearance. It's a shift, a soul shaker that hits them in ways they never expected. And it's in that absence that your value finally becomes undeniable, unmistakable, irreplaceable. Imagine the person you've been trying to attract. Someone who only ever gave you half-hearted attention, keeping you on the sidelines, never fully reciprocating your interest. They kept you around because they liked the attention, enjoyed knowing someone cared. But now you're gone. You've withdrawn your energy, stopped making the effort. And suddenly it hits them. They feel the void, the silence you left behind, louder than anything they've ever heard. And for the first time, they feel what it's like to miss you. Picture someone in a stale relationship, someone who has been treating you as if you were just part of the furniture there, but unappreciated. They were distant, treating your presence like a burden rather than a blessing. But when you finally decide enough is enough, when you disappear from their life without a word, it changes everything. They feel a sharp, undeniable sting of rejection, one that pierces through their facade of indifference. And as the days go by, they start to realize what they lost. It's in those quiet moments when they're alone with their thoughts that the reality of your absence begins to weigh on them. They start to wonder if they were too aloof, too careless, if maybe they missed their chance. Their minds filled with regrets. Regrets that eat away at them because you're not there to provide comfort, to ease their doubts, to reassure them that they still hold a place in your life. Now they're left alone, facing their own fears, their own insecurities, and in that silence, that void, they come face to face with the truth: they never valued you until they no longer had access to you. That silence, that emptiness, is the loudest wake-up call they'll ever hear. This shift in dynamic is powerful. It's a reminder that your worth isn't something to be discovered only in your absence. Yet sometimes that's the only way they'll understand what they took for granted. Sometimes vanishing is the only way to make them realize just how irreplaceable you are. And as the days turn to weeks, that absence becomes the silence they can't ignore, the peace they can't replace. So here's my challenge to you: let them feel it. Walk away and let them sit with the cold reality of life without you. Because when they finally start reaching out, trying to pull you back into their orbit, you'll know this one undeniable truth: you hold the power now. Drop the phrase "one," accept the challenge if you're ready to reclaim your worth, to take control of your story, and to let them realize what they lost when you disappeared. Let's break free from this cycle together. And remember, this isn't just a minor disturbance in their life, this is a seismic shift. You become the silence in their head, the mystery they can't solve, the missing energy they crave. Your absence is a void they can't fill, a constant reminder of what they lost. It's a magnet, a force that draws them back as they begin to realize the depth of what they once took for granted. And here's the kicker: the more you stay away, the stronger that pull becomes. You're no longer the one chasing, they are. They're the ones left wondering, questioning, hoping. So take a step back, reclaim your worth, and let them come to terms with what they lost. Because believe me, you're not the only one who needs this message. There are countless others, just like you, waiting for that wake-up call. Let's break this cycle together. They wake up one day and it hits them like a sting they didn't see coming. They've lost you. And now the reality is setting in. The sting is sharp, made even harsher by the realization that they took you for granted. Maybe they didn't appreciate you when you were present. Now in your absence, they feel the cold bite of rejection, facing the truth of what they let slip away. Steve Maraboli said it perfectly. The most painful thing is losing yourself in the process of loving someone too much, and forgetting that you are special too, whether it's someone new or someone from the past. They neglected to see your worth. They assumed you'd always be there, ever loyal, ever giving. But now that you've stepped away, the sting they feel is simply the echo of their own neglect. And here's a powerful truth: it's not about them. This moment isn't about their regret or longing. It's about you reclaiming your worth and rediscovering your strength. For too long you might have stayed, perhaps even pleaded, hoping they would finally value you. You feared that if you walked away, they'd replace you, forget you, or that somehow you'd be the one to lose. But now, as you distance yourself, you realize that fear was nothing but a mirage. What you're doing now is not running, it's letting go. It's stepping into your own power and embracing the worth they should have recognized all along. And here's the thing: they feel it. They feel that shift, the sting of knowing you're not theirs to hold anymore. Remember this: you are not here to chase anyone. You are not here to be taken for granted. You are the prize, the treasure that someone should cherish. In this moment of clarity, ground yourself with this affirmation: I am enough exactly as I am, and I will never beg for anyone to see my worth. Let that sink in. You don't need to seek validation from someone who couldn't recognize your value when you were right there, heart and soul. standing by their side. Your decision to step back isn't about games or manipulation. It's about self-respect and knowing you deserve more. If you're ready to step into your power to put an end to being an option, I encourage you to write these words: I am done begging. Write it down, own it, and let the world know. You're not here to chase anyone's approval. You deserve better. Now, it's time for them to feel life without you. And this is just the beginning. There are deeper realizations they'll face along the way. This journey of self-worth is unfolding for you step by step. Before you move forward, though, let's consider what lies ahead for them and how it will impact them. After the sting of rejection fades, and emptiness takes its place. This isn't just any emptiness, it's the hollow ache of missing someone who brought genuine value to their life. They may try to deny it, put on a brave face, or tell themselves they're fine. But deep down, something is gnawing at them, something they can't brush off. It's the void left by your absence when you were present. They took it all for granted: your time, your kindness, the way you were always there. Now, there's a gaping hole where you once were, and it's consuming them. This feeling goes beyond having someone to text or spend time with. It's the loss of comfort, security, and stability you provided, things they never thought they'd miss until they were gone. They may have thought you'd always be there, unwavering and reliable, but now that sense of stability is gone, and they're left with a realization that's unsettling. Imagine this: they see your absence in every small thing: the silence where a text would be, the missed laughter in familiar places. Each moment without you feels heavier, a constant reminder of how much better their days were when you were part of them. They might have thought they could move on easily, but the truth is your presence was a gift. And now, without it, they're left grappling with a void they can't ignore. In an old relationship, the feeling intensifies. They realize how much of their world was built around your shared life. Those small, everyday comforts, goodnight messages, weekend plans, the quiet moments together are now painful reminders of what they took for granted. They're left to confront memories that once brought joy, memories now laced with regret. There's a saying: you don't know what you have until it's gone. It captures the depth of what they're feeling now. In their attempt to cope, they might distract themselves, spend time with others, or pick up new hobbies. But nothing can fill the emptiness you've left behind. This emptiness serves as a powerful wake-up call, forcing them to confront the reality of your absence. Let them sit with it. Let them feel it fully. Because only in this space can they truly understand the impact of losing you. Following the sting of rejection and the emptiness of missing you, another feeling sneaks in: overwhelming curiosity. At first they try to ignore it, pretending they don't care. But soon enough, curiosity begins to eat away at them. They wonder what you're doing, who you're spending time with, and why you've stopped reaching out. This curiosity morphs into an obsession. Each passing day without contact fuels their questions: why did you pull away? Are you happier now? Perhaps for someone new? Their mind races with scenarios, consumed by thoughts of what you might be doing and how you could move on so easily. This curiosity grows stronger, and they realize they're the ones left wondering while you're focused on your own growth and happiness. In situations with someone new, their curiosity is rooted in confusion. You were once invested, making an effort, and now you're a ghost. The tables have turned, and suddenly they find themselves without the upper hand. They're trying to piece together why you stopped, and it unsettles them deeply. The mystery of your absence is something they're desperate to solve. As they spiral through these stages, let them. This is their journey, not yours. You've walked away not to manipulate or control, but to reclaim your life, your energy, and your worth. Stand firm, grounded in the knowledge that you are whole on your own. If you feel tempted to check in, to reach out, resist. Let them feel the emptiness fully. Let them sit with their curiosity. Every part of this process is necessary for them to understand the depth of what they lost. Use this time to reaffirm yourself with these words: I am whole. Without them, their longing, their regret, their curiosity, none of it defines you. You don't need their validation to feel complete. You are enough on your own. So when they eventually reach out, understand this: you hold the power now. They may seek to reconnect, to fill the void only you can fill. But remember, it's on your terms now. Their absence only highlights your strength. And nothing they feel should pull you back into a place where you're not valued. Write this in your heart, in your mind, in the comments if it helps: I am whole. Without them, this is your declaration, your reminder that your value isn't defined by their acknowledgement. Let them feel your absence. You are more than enough exactly as you are. Every time they pick up their phone and don't see a message from you, it stings just a little deeper. It's a reminder that they're no longer a part of your daily life, no longer privy to the details that once flowed so freely. In an old relationship, the impact hits even harder. They used to know your routines, habits, and little quirks, the essence of who you are. Now, they're left in the dark, and the not knowing is unbearable. They wonder who might be filling the space they left vacant. Has someone else taken their place? Or have you decided to embrace a new, brighter chapter without them? This curiosity isn't just a fleeting feeling that comes and goes. It follows them throughout the day, nagging at them when they wake up to an empty phone screen or scroll through social media, only to find no trace of you. They might even start checking in on you indirectly, maybe by asking mutual friends or subtly keeping tabs on your online presence. But no matter how much they search, they won't find what they're looking for. You're not giving them any clues about where you are or who you're becoming. In this space, you're thriving. You're living your life on your own terms, focusing on your growth and embracing the freedom that comes with stepping away. No longer are you tethered to their expectations or their need for validation. And it drives them crazy. The more you become an enigma, the stronger their curiosity grows. Here's an affirmation to keep you grounded: I am the mystery they can't solve. Drop it in the comments, declare it, and solidify it for yourself. You're no longer an open book they can read at their convenience. You become a puzzle, tantalizingly out of reach. And that's a challenge they can't resist. When they can no longer shake their curiosity, a different feeling sets in: self-reflection. When you disappear from their life, they're forced to look inward, to face the uncomfortable questions they've been dodging. At first, they might shrug off your absence, convincing themselves it doesn't matter. But as time passes and the silence settles in, they begin to question themselves. Did I push them away? Was I too distant? These doubts gnaw at them, replaying scenarios in their minds, moments when they could have shown you more kindness, been more attentive, or simply appreciated you more. For someone who's only recently come to know you, this reflection can be startling. They may not have fully realized how much they were taking your presence for granted. Now, with you gone, they're left to wonder if they missed something special, someone who could have been a major part of their life. And for someone who was in a long-term relationship with you, this self-reflection cuts deeper. They look back at the moments you invested, the times you tried to keep things alive, and they begin to understand the value of what they lost. This process of self-reflection is more than just regret, it's an awakening. They see maybe for the first time that your decision to pull away was a response to their own actions or lack thereof. This realization stings more than anything else. They can't place the blame on you anymore, because the reality is right in front of them. Their behavior, their choices drove you to leave. What you're doing during this time is staying strong, focusing on yourself, and refusing to fall back into old patterns. Their self-reflection is not your burden. They have to confront their own growth or lack of it, on their own terms. Here's an affirmation to keep you rooted. I reflect, but I don't regret. Write it in the comments to seal your commitment to self-growth. You're moving forward stronger and wiser while they grapple with the consequences of their choices. Once self-reflection sets in, a powerful urge to pursue you takes hold. This is when the tables truly turn. The person who once felt in control, who may have thought they didn't need you, suddenly feels the pull to chase after what they lost. It's not just a fleeting thought, it's a deep, undeniable need to regain the connection they once took for granted. Initially, they might have convinced themselves that your absence was no big deal. They told themselves they didn't need you, that they were fine. But now, after missing your presence, confronting their curiosity, and facing their own shortcomings, they realize they were wrong. This emptiness, this void, has them reaching out, trying to reconnect with the person they once overlooked. For someone who only knew you briefly, they begin to understand that they missed out on a rare opportunity, and they feel an urge to see if they can still be a part of your life. In a long-term relationship, this urge is even stronger. They're haunted by memories of times you made an effort, the dinners, the late-night conversations, the little things you did to keep the relationship alive. Now they want that back. They want you back. The desire to pursue you becomes all-consuming, and they'll go to great lengths to try and reconnect. They might like your posts, send casual messages, or even reach out to mutual friends to get a sense of where you stand. But here's the beautiful irony: you step back, and now they're the ones doing the chasing. The roles have reversed. They no longer hold the control they once thought they had. The certainty they felt in having you there, always available, has dissolved into a deep uncertainty, leaving them with nothing but the urge to bridge the gap they created. Here's where your power lies. You have the choice now. You've already chosen to move forward, and now you get to decide whether their pursuit is even worth your time. This isn't about playing games, it's about knowing your worth. They're chasing now because they see what they've lost, what you always knew about yourself, that you are worth pursuing. Here's an affirmation to keep you grounded. I attract, I don't chase. Write it down, declare it, and let it be known. You're in control now, and whether they come back or not is up to you. As they wrestle with the urge to pursue you, they face an internal tug-of-war between two powerful emotions: relief and regret. At first, when you stepped away, they might have felt a temporary sense of freedom, a relief that gave them space to breathe. They might have convinced themselves they needed this distance, that it was what they wanted. But relief is fleeting. Regret starts creeping in subtly at first with small what-ifs. Maybe I should have tried harder. Maybe I was too distant. Over time, regret intensifies, overshadowing any sense of relief they felt. They realize they were wrong to assume you'd always be there, waiting, and they're forced to confront the fact that they let something valuable slip away. For someone who only briefly knew you, this regret is the weight of missed potential. At first they enjoyed their newfound space, but soon they're haunted by thoughts of what might have been if they'd valued you when they had the chance. In a long-term relationship, the regret cuts even deeper. They remember the times you tried to bridge the gap, the efforts you made to bring back the spark. They realize now that their sense of relief was never about finding freedom, but about losing something meaningful. Now they're left with the weight of knowing they didn't appreciate you when they had the chance. This conflict between relief and regret becomes a wake-up call. They start to see that what they thought was freedom was really the absence of something significant. And now they're left with nothing but the knowledge of what they let slip away. Imagine this as I was saying, straight talk, no gimmicks, just the truth. Here's a powerful affirmation to keep you grounded in who you are. I am more than enough, say it. Write it down. Let that remind you every single day that you are worth far more than whatever temporary relief they once felt. Remember their regret? That's your strength. It fuels you. They had their chance, and now you're no longer an option. You're the treasure they let slip through their fingers. When regret settles in, some people don't face it honestly. Instead, they want to play games thinking they can somehow regain control or pull you back. They'll try to test the water, see if they can get a reaction, thinking they can maneuver their way back into your life without ever admitting their mistakes. But here's what they don't understand: they've already lost the upper hand. They might act indifferent, try to seem unbothered, maybe even mirror your behavior. They hope that by pretending not to care, you'll come running back. They might post pictures on social media, showing off a life that seems oh so exciting, trying to stir up jealousy. Or worse, they'll flirt with others right in front of you, hoping it hits you. But guess what? You're not playing the game anymore. You've taken a step back, reclaimed your power, and now you're out of reach. Their attempt to play this game only reveals their insecurities, because while they're trying to get a reaction, you're way beyond that. For someone else, this might seem like a test, a challenge. They might pretend to be unaffected by your absence, hoping you'll be the one to break the silence. But with each passing day that you hold your ground, those cracks in their confidence begin to show. They want you to be the first to reach out, but every silent moment without you fuels their frustration. In an old relationship, the games get even trickier. They'll play hot and cold, throw you mixed signals, hoping you'll bite. But here's the difference: this time you're not falling for it. Their game is a last-ditch attempt to pull you back into something you've already outgrown. Here's an affirmation for you to hold close: I no longer play games. Write it down, make it real. Let them play all they want, because by stepping out of their game, you've already won. After all that push and pull, they're left with something they didn't expect: the silence. Silence can be louder than words, and now your absence, it's deafening. At first they thought they could handle it, thought they could wait you out, but now the quiet is pressing down on them. No more back and forth, no more excuses, just silence. And it's suffocating. Without a text, without a call, without even the chance of a casual run-in, they're left to feel every bit of the void you once filled. Each day that goes by without a word from you becomes a reminder of what they let slip away. This silence forces them to sit alone with their own thoughts, with the reality of what they've lost. For someone new, the silence is nearly unbearable. They're used to you being the one to keep things moving, to make the effort. But now that you've pulled away completely, all they have left is the echo of their own doubts and regrets. That silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back all their indecision, all their missed chances, and there's nowhere for them to hide from it. In an old relationship, the weight of silence is even more profound. They were used to the rhythm of your relationship, the late night talks, the plans you used to make, even the arguments that once filled the space. But now, There's nothing, just silence, forcing them to confront the reality of life without you. And it isn't something they can just shake off. Here's an affirmation for you. My silence speaks volumes. Say it, write it down. Let this silence be your power. While they wrestle with its weight, you stand tall, knowing your absence says more than words ever could. After the silence sets in, there comes a moment when fear takes over. They start to worry. The fear that you've moved on, that they've lost you for good, gnaws at them. It's no longer about pride or games or ego, it's about survival. The thought of a life without you is unbearable, and the reality that they might have missed their chance hits them hard. That fear runs deep. They wonder if someone else has stepped into their place, if you found happiness elsewhere. The idea of you being truly gone, of you moving forward without them, eats away at their peace of mind until they can't stand it. In the case of someone new, this fear comes from their own misjudgment. They thought they could take their time, that you'd always be an option. But now that silence has gone on too long, and the fear that someone else has captured your attention grows more desperate. They'll start reaching out, sending messages, maybe even showing up unannounced, because they can't bear the thought of losing you. For someone from the past, the fear is even stronger. They thought they knew you, thought they could predict your every move. But now they see the truth, and it terrifies them. They're forced to reckon with all those times they pushed you away, every moment they took you for granted. Your silence, your newfound independence, it shakes them to their core. But here's the most important part. When they come back, they're coming back on your terms. You're no longer the one seeking validation or begging for their attention. You've reclaimed your power, and now they're the ones who are desperate. This is where the dynamic shifts. They finally see what they let go. Here's an affirmation to carry with you. I am worth the chase. Write it down. Let it remind you that you're the prize here. Their fear may have brought them back, but now it's up to you to decide if they even deserve a second chance. If this resonates with you, remember to like, subscribe, and share this message with anyone who needs to hear it. Your strength, your power lies in your ability to walk away and let them feel the loss. Hold your ground, know your worth. They'll come crawling back, but only if you let them. Stay strong. Stay grounded. Always remember you're the prize. Through it all, remember this: you hold the power. You've grown, and you're becoming someone more aware and more powerful than ever before. This journey has brought you to a place of strength and understanding, and now the choice is yours. Whether they come back or not is irrelevant. What matters is that you've taken control of your story. As they battle with their regret, you stand firm in your own growth. Let this be your affirmation: I am my own anchor. Write it, leave it, and embrace it.